And good evening. It is Intuitive Soul Radio with your host, Laura Houston. And this evening we have Robert Bruce with us, who is the author of Astral Dynamics, Practical Psychic Self-Defense, and Energy Work, among others. Welcome, Robert. Usually we begin by talking about your journey, and I'd like you to talk to us about, what sort of got you here. You have an extensive knowledge base of information that I have been privy to, which is your book Energy Work, as well as your book Astral Dynamics, and the online course that you teach. And it is full of incredible information and extraordinarily extensive. So how did you get involved with this?
I've been having out-of-body experiences since I was 4 years old. I just started having them when I was about 4, floating through the house, spontaneous OBEs, and I had them all through my childhood. And when I was about 16, my parents got involved with the Spiritualist Church, and I was exposed to various material. And the subject of astral projection came up when I was around about 20, I suppose. And I remember doing it vividly many, many, many times. And so I worked on learning how to do it, and that took me several months. And I went on from there. I got involved with the local Spiritualist Church, and next I opened up a healing centre, and it just sort of flowed from there. And skipped forward many years until I was in my mid-30s, when a lot of heavy phenomena happened to me and around me, and that drew me back into this in a much more robust way of actually doing things rather than reading about them. And that changed me. I've written a bit about that in my book, Practical Psychic Self-Defense, what happened to me then. And after that, I got a message from my higher self, you might call it, very clearly that I needed to write. And so I started writing, and which was a bit of a shock, because I finished grade 8 reasonably well. And so I had a lot to learn. And then I produced my first book, Astral Dynamics.
That was your first book?
Yeah, and it's been quite a journey since then. I've written 5, 6 books since then.
Wow. Now, you say in the material, as well as
Sorry, I can barely hear you.
Okay, you say in your material that it is really important to undertake a spiritual practice. Can you talk about that?
Yes, well, if you live your life on default and don't do a spiritual practice, and a spiritual practice can be a meditation every day, a half-hour meditation, anything like that. Or you might take up yoga and meditation or something. If you don't do that, we tend to get consumed by our lives. Life takes over, and we go from one thing to the other, and before we know it, life is over. Because life will fill your time, and children and come along, and grandchildren, and work. It just consumes it, and you blink and it's over. And you can go through your entire life without having hardly any contact with the spiritual. And so if you start earlier by having a spiritual practice, you keep in touch with that, and you then have the opportunity of taking it further, of developing spiritually, of growing. And so it's a big help.
And what would you consider a spiritual practice?
Meditation, at the very basic level, just the daily level meditation of any kind, of any tradition, I would also recommend some energy work, which I teach in my book called Energy Work. That is invaluable you combine that with meditation and everything starts to work.
It certainly seems like a complete guide that you've been developing to assist us to create that kind of practice and to assist us to do, the kind of work that you've been doing, which since you were 4, that sounds amazing. What
I teach is I'm driven to do this. I didn't just sit down and think about what can I write about. I want to write a book. It was I was very compelled to write the works I've written, and each one has been inspirationally based. I will often start writing a book that I've chosen to write, and within a couple of weeks I'll get dragged off that onto another project of what wants to be written. My books have a life of their own, and they want to be written.
Right. So you recommend for us to observe our thoughts, actions, and words, and to ask 3 questions before saying anything, which is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary?
Wise words. Yeah. I learned those from my mother.
Aww.
And they're very, very apt if you apply them to life. It's a good general guidance in life, because often if you don't answer those questions, we're running on ego, and it's not in a spiritual sense. And those things help you to look at what you're saying, because often we live our lives based on programming, the programming we've learned from hereditary, from our childhood and as we grow up, and we're not actually thinking, we're not observing ourselves of what we're saying, we're not deciding to say things. We are just reacting according to our programming. Mm-hmm. So those questions help to differentiate between what our programming, our ego, our pain body is dictating us to do and say, and what we're actually choosing to say on a spiritual level.
So you started with, out-of-body experiences. So your book, certainly what we're discussing tonight, is about, astral projection and your course, Astral Dynamics. Why do you think we are so fascinated with this? What do you think is, the purpose of being able to do this?
Well, everybody does this. No exceptions. Whenever you sleep, you leave your body. You could say you project from your body. We actually split up. There is something called the mind split effect, and it happens every time you fall asleep or enter an altered state of consciousness. You can be fully awake in an altered state of consciousness and have an astral projection in progress, which often happens during meditation unnoticed. And your dream mind can also become active at the same time, simultaneously. So there are 2 or 3 aspects of you functioning simultaneously. Unfortunately, the natural mind, our brain, the way we naturally store memories is to store memories in a linear 3D way. One memory stream, what we're doing is normally recorded. Now, when you've got 2 or 3 memory streams, 2 or 3 of you recording experience memories independently, after that experience there, the mind generally only downloads 1 copy, and the strongest memory is the one that's usually remembered. Takes a bit of a mind flip to get your head around that. I wrote an article which is actually a part of the new book I've just done. I've just finished a second edition of Astral Dynamics, my first book, which will be released in the fall, in September. And that is my best yet.